Hello and welcome to Eldridge and Company. I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Flavia Alaya is a scholar, a writer, an artist, an educator, and an urban activist. She's also an Italian-American feminist. She recently shared parts of her life with us, describing its fullness and intensity in a memoir entitled Under the Rose, a Confession. Now, my confession is, why did you call it a confession?
Well, first, it's, of course, an Italian-American girlhood, Catholic girlhood. And I was trying to invoke that layer of meaning that had to do with the confessional. After all, it is a memoir about, largely about my secret life as the, what the church would call the concubine of a priest, Harry Brown, who was an activist priest in New York in the 1960s. And it was during that period that we had a secret romance, which really was a secret family. And I was, when I started this book, about the idea of actually telling something that people didn't want to hear. So in that sense, it was a confession. It's also a request, you know, in the church, a confession is a request for absolution, a kind of begging of forgiveness. I knew that Harry was a very private person himself, would not necessarily have been thrilled at my telling this story. And I was seeking forgiveness both from him and from my biological father, who also figures largely in the book, because I had to figure out how I got to where I was.
But not from the church. I mean, did you feel guilty because of your religion ever in this relationship?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Right. I was always very actually sassy about that.
Right.
I always thought that Harry and I were on the cutting edge of change. So did he. This was going to be the way the church was going to go. And I was never sorry for what I had done or what we had done.
Father Brown was a major character and person on the west side of Manhattan. He was at St. Gregory's Church. This is just for the viewers, and in the West Side Urban Renewal area. And he was really the leader of the people of the West Side Urban Renewal area. I knew him because we moved into the West Side Urban Renewal area. But he fought for the public housing and for the poor people. He gave them a voice and did he actually ever train with Saul Alinsky, or was he an Alinsky type organizer?
He was an Alinsky follower. He had always talked about Alinsky's books and actually met him a couple of times, and they had seminars and workshops together. I wanted to say about my relationship with Harry that it predates any of his urban activism.
Right.
He had been a professor of history at Catholic University and had been, in some sense, for reasons that are a bit mysterious and which I try to explore in the course of my memoir, reprimanded by Cardinal Spellman because he was a diocesan priest and could be pushed and pulled by the Cardinal of New York. At which point he decided he was going to seek a grant to study Italian immigration, Italian Catholic immigration, and go to Rome to study. And I happened to have a study grant to Italy at the same time, and we met in Italy.
So you were both Fulbright scholars?
We were both Fulbright scholars.
Let me just stop right there, and let's just go, because I'm so interested in it. It's so relevant today with the Catholic Church and the questioning of the authority and the hierarchy and everything that goes on. Yeah. He was very committed to his faith.
Absolutely.
Right.
Loyal to the core.
And Irish and born in Hell's Kitchen area?
Yes, yes. The son who was to become the priest, but he never reluctantly did it. He eagerly did it. He had great mentors in the course of his education. He'd gone to St. Michael's School, grew up in Hell's Kitchen, as you say, went to St. Michael's, went to Cathedral Seminary, which, by the way, figures again in the news today. And then on to St. Joseph's Seminary. He was the darling of his class. I've seen a picture of him in the seminary, on the seminary wall, where he is just looking like, I can do it. I can be, you know, the representative of this faith. He was very, very deeply
But he was
loyal.
very strong personality, very smart.
Yeah.
And very, in his own way, political, I would
Very
think.
deeply
Always
political.
always.
Always political.
So that there's, I mean, I always have a theory about being a priest or even a rabbi or anybody. It's that it's very similar to politics. A politician and a priest, it's very powerful.
That's a very good insight. I'm not sure everybody treats it that way.
Right.
Some priests try to be apolitical, But Harry never dodged the
Yeah.
politics of the community, really, which is the politics of his religious community. And once he got to St. Gregory's, which was quite really, he came back from his trip to Italy where we had met. We had decided we were going to continue this relationship. I would live in New York. He would live in New York. I found an apartment on West 88th Street. The Cardinal plants him at St. Gregory's on West 90th Street. We're 2
What could
blocks
be
away.
better?
It was absolutely uncanny. So we were both involved in the West Side.
So
Urban
why
Renewal
didn't the
movement.
Cardinal like him? Was he just too independent?
No, I don't think the Cardinal...
wasn't a question of like
not
or
liking
dislike.
him. He loved him.
Oh.
And Harry returned
Yeah,
it. I
yeah.
mean, Harry admired Spellman
Yeah.
a great deal, thought he was astute politically.
Right. So
and
why did
really,
they take him out of Catholic University?
well, it's probably a longer story than I
Yeah.
can tell at this moment, but I think it was because he was a bit too feisty. He had been active in the American Association for University Professors. He was an organizer. He was a fast talker. He was a big mouth, and he was talking back to people who didn't like to be talked back to. So obedience, in the real sense, and obedience is at the heart of the priesthood, was something that Harry, at that stage of his life, was beginning to find a
Very
heavy
difficult.
load to carry. And I think he finally found a way when he was pastor at St. Gregory's. He eventually became pastor at St. Gregory's. I mean, he was an assistant for a while and then moved up. But once he became a pastor at St. Gregory's, he found a way to be a loyal priest, a political activist, and at the same time do his own thing, which was really, and of course it was the time to do it. It was the 60s, it was the civil rights movement, it was the anti-war movement, it was everything going on, and urban renewal on top of it. So he was like 17 lives, you know, he just was everywhere.
And he was so aware of his power. That was what always fascinated me. When he was in the neighborhood, he was talking to friends, he never had the
Absolutely.
collar on, he just had the black shirt or something, right?
Right.
And when he went down to City Hall or wherever he had to go, boy, he was the pastor of St. Gregory's.
That's
Heavy,
right, the
heavy,
collar, turnaround
'cause
collar,
he
as
was
he used to
totally
put it.
aware of
The uses
impact
of
and
that
the uses.
collar, yeah, of the
It's a
uses
very-
of that collar.
it was very
Which is
interesting.
why I never said, you know, let's get married, leave the church. I mean, you
Did you
can't
not-
stop this from happening.
Didn't
It
you
was
ever
like
want him to get to marry?
Marriage was not the issue. I guess it was more commitment, relationship,
Yeah.
what it might be. I was a feminist. That was the leading
he
edge
was
of
a
the
flirt.
feminist movement, and I wanted to be
Independent.
who I was, you
Yeah.
know. So that, interestingly enough, this relationship gave me the opportunity to do that. I mean, I always thought there's a very fine line between secrecy and privacy, and a lot of people forget that privacy in the 60s was a much bigger thing. Family people kept to themselves, and they kept their family lives to themselves, and so
They tried to.
They tried to.
Without the FBI or other people.
Yeah, right. And we weren't doing anything criminal. I
Right.
mean, it was uncanonical, but it wasn't criminal. So, I mean, I didn't feel that bad about it, and I didn't feel. I felt that I could risk whatever openness about our relationship had to be sacrificed to the good work he was doing and the good work I was doing. I mean, I was
Well, you
helping
came
too.
from an Italian Catholic family.
Right.
Are they as Catholic as the
the
Irish?
Irish?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, and one which recently took up with some Irish people I was talking to. But you might say that in some ways they are more Catholic. I mean, there's a tremendous intensity. My mother was devout to the heart, but it was a devotional Catholicism that had a different kind of edge. It was devotion to all the saints. It was devotion to the Virgin Mary, to the Mater Dolorosa, and so on.
It has a richness to it.
Yes,
It's
yes,
got
and it wasn't very patriarchal. On the other hand, my father was profoundly anti-clerical Neapolitan, wouldn't have anything to do with priests. So when he even heard the word priest in relation to me, he was scandalized. And at the time that I finally had my first baby, he disowned me. He wouldn't talk to me, and we didn't actually have a conversation for 10 years. But it was, you know, being Italian Catholic, I think, enabled me to cross the line from just being, you know, a Catholic girl to being the lover of a Catholic priest, because he was never anything but a human being to me. He was never a god. I read about in the papers these guys who take what they get from priests because there's kind of this godlike quality, and you're so devout and so devotional that you'll do anything
So
they
that
say.
started at the very beginning when you met him first
Yeah.
in Rome.
That's
if you
right.
came from a different perspective, it would have been intimidating and most likely might not even have happened.
Yes, and I met women who were his friends, as you said. He
Yeah.
was a flirt. He was
Oh, he was an
surrounded by women
incredible
all the
flirt.
time. He was gorgeous, and
Yeah.
he was funny, and he was charismatic. So he was always surrounded by women, and Catholic women who adored him but would never lay a hand on him, or would never even dream that he might lay a hand on them. But he took the initiative in our relationship. After all, I was 22, and I was pretty hot. And he liked me. We had a great conversation. I mean, I was from the New York area too. He liked what we had in common. He liked what we didn't have in common. And he loved Italians. He was crazy about Italians, and particularly Italian women. So he bridged the gulf, and it didn't really take me long to cross over, although it was a crossing, I have to admit. It was a big crossing.
When you grew up, did you have a first communion?
Oh yeah, I had all the trappings.
Right.
There's a picture of me having my first communion in the book. So. Yeah.
Did you, but you didn't go to parochial high school. Did you go to parochial schools earlier?
I went to some parochial schools in the course of my training.
And you moved, too.
My
You
sister
grew up in
was much more parochialized than I was.
Yeah.
But I had the good luck, really, to sort of be, I don't know, pulled out of Catholic school when I was in the 5th grade and sent to a public school for reasons that are too remote now to go over. But I hadn't done anything bad. It was just like they just couldn't deal with me. I was smart, I was cocky, and I just needed a different environment. So my mother willingly, because she was fed up with the priests at that point, sent me to the local public school. And from there on, I was really a secular
and you and I were lucky enough to go to this wonderful school, which was the High School of Music and Art.
High School of Music and Art was just my political education, my, I guess, really divergence from my Italian Catholic girlhood.
Started there?
I became Jewish, really.
Well, I always thought the whole world was Jewish, so it was always complicated.
Jewish and leftist, and you know, it was that, I think, complexity of things that probably interested
It was a
Harry
wonderful
lot.
environment,
Oh,
wasn't it?
was
It means it was the school which is now called what? LaGuardia School of what?
Of fine and performing
fine,
arts or something
like that. But it combined with performing arts. You just had a 50th reunion?
We just had my 50th. I shouldn't tell things like that.
That's all right.
50th class
I'm gonna
reunion.
best it.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was wonderful not only to be there amongst people who were my classmates, but also to meet people from newer graduates of M&A who, or what is now LaGuardia, who speak of their experience at LaGuardia just as we speak of our experience at M&A. It's just the most transforming and shaping experience of our lives.
We then both went on to Barnard College.
That's true,
Although
we
we
did.
realized I must be 4 years older than you, since I just had my 50th college reunion, which I
Yes,
hate. It's just, I can't have,
Yeah,
have not
put your head
coped with that.
around it.
I still haven't decided what
Well, I
to
had
do
my
with my life,
45th
so you
last
can
year.
tell I have a quandary.
Well, that's what Barnard taught us to do,
Right.
never to decide what to do with your life.
Is that what did I learn that at Barnard?
Yes.
I can't quite remember. I thought, and lots of people seem to say, that what you learned at Barnard was that you could have
You could do anything.
do anything.
Right.
So you can have 5 children because the dean
That's
was Millicent McIntosh. She had
right.
5 or 6 children, and she was the head of a women's college. So it's easy to do everything, and people have been trying to do that ever since, and it wasn't that easy.
That's right. And of course, if you're going to do everything, it's going to be a changing deal all the time.
right.
You're never going to stay in the same career.
Right.
So
We
that's
never,
really what you're
I
prepared
think
for.
that increasingly in society, we don't learn that it's flexible and that it is changing and evolving, that it always, I think that too many people are just pushed into this straight line of...
As if they're going to do something for
Yeah,
the rest of their
yeah,
lives.
yeah.
Well, of course, when I was teaching, and to some extent I still am teaching, but I spent my career as a professor, I tried to encourage my students to recognize that things would change and that they would not necessarily be doing 20 years from now what they were doing, now. So I think some people are getting that recognition. My kids are. I don't know about yours. Mine seem to have acknowledged that things will change.
Yeah.
And there'll always be an unfolding
and
opportunity
and
for
you
their
just
talents.
move and change, and there are different things that take your attention at different times.
Right.
Let's go back to Harry. What would he say today about the controversy
Oh, God.
and the organization of the church?
Well, he would say, I think by now, he would say they had it coming.
Mm-hmm.
That they've been sweeping this kind of stuff under the rug for too long. He would also say, I hope that what I try to say in the book, that there's a long history of the church's wrong attitude towards women, that has to be remedied too, which is also being sidelined right now. I mean, I have no quarrel with the attack on clerical pedophilia, and I add that Catholic priests and ministers are not the only ones who do this, but I think to ignore the fact that that church policy about sexuality has injured women as well as children, to fail to acknowledge that is a mistake. And so I'm, I guess, about tooting that horn and making sure that we don't forget that women have suffered. I don't want to consider myself a victim. I willingly did what I did. But I have talked to a lot of women since I wrote this book who have read the book and have considered themselves, in some sense, my sister. Because they were in relationships with priests, and they suffered, and the priests suffered. And in fact, recently had an exchange, telephone and letter exchange, with a woman who was a Maryknoll nun who eventually married a Maryknoll priest. And what she described about the way he declined after he left the priesthood reminds me very much of what happened to Harry after he left St. Gregory's. He never became laicized. He refused to become laicized. Once a priest, always a priest, he said, and he was going to define a new way of being a priest. But the point was that the injury to his identity was profound. I mean, priests have a very clear sense of vocation. Most of them, the ones who are you know, who do this with their full hearts, and sometimes it's a sense of vocation that involves a particular way of being in a community, not just the gilding, you know, the worship, but a sense of being the voice for social justice.
It's a mission.
A mission, yes, for doing something right. And to be bereft of that voice, of that way of doing something good was
also
tremendously
the platform.
painful.
I mean,
The
another
platform.
way of doing it. It's like retired politicians.
There's a passage in my book which I thought about reading today, but I don't think I need to read it. But that reminds me, that I'm reminded of as we talk about Harry as having a priesthood platform. When he spoke to the Ribicoff Committee in 1966 about about urban renewal and what the federal government was supposed to be doing there, and they gave him a voice because he had the
collar on. Absolutely.
And he knew it and told them so, and said you should have other people in here. And
it's definitely true. It's such a stature and such a position of power that it's very important. When you talk about the women in the church, though, what about women being able to join and, I mean, to become priests and to share in the
present Pope? You know, I'm not sure what the future will bring, but the Pope several years ago foreclosed the possibility of women becoming priests. I can't get my head around that. I find that I just can't believe it happened, but it happened, and the church let it happen. So we won't have a female priesthood. What we have, of course, in the churches are women who are doing everything but the sacraments, who are you know, servicing the faithful in every other way. And so effectively, women are doing the work of the priesthood and becoming ministers in some sense. But of course, in other faiths, in other faith communities, they are priests. Thank heavens, they're able to do that.
The Catholic Church is always a mystery to non-Catholics.
Yes,
I mean, it is. It's filled with mystery and all these rituals
deliberately
and things that we don't understand. Right, definitely deliberately.
Mystified,
no, it's not.
yes,
Well, I don't know. It most likely is. Yeah, I think all religion is based on some kind
mystification,
of mystification and fear. I mean, that's, you know, but
you know, the whole idea of this with scandal that's going on now is that the church has a kind of predisposition against giving scandal. The phrase is giving scandal. So creating that appearance of purity, of high-mindedness, of holiness, of sacrosanctity is very important to the Catholic Church.
Well, now, how could Harry openly live with you and openly father 3 children and still have the church not take any actions against him? Since
well, first of all, you have to say openly is
quasi.
It was quasi-openly in the sense that a couple of people actually knew it. Some people may have suspected it, but the anonymity of the New York area and the kind of tumult of the 60s really created a smokescreen that enabled us to do this in a way that wasn't really open.
So just
I lived in New Jersey for most of those
Right.
years. He was pastor at St. Gregory's. New Jersey is a million miles away anyway. It's another universe
the other
compared to
side.
New York now,
Yeah.
let alone in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So it was possible to conduct my life as if I were a wife and mother, and he to visit, you know, without the turnaround
Yeah.
collar, and conduct himself like an ordinary husband, coming home on weekends and so on, at that time. So it wasn't really open. But the question was, how did he deal with it psychologically? How did he deal with it as a priest? Well, as I said, he had hoped, and so did I, that things would change. And even after he left the St.
parish,
Gregory's,
right.
not the priesthood,
So he
but
left St. Gregory's, but
in
he was a
1970.
priest of the diocese.
He was a diocesan priest. That means that he was under the control of the Bishop of New York, who is the Archbishop or the Cardinal
Right.
of New York. But that meant that he had to obey the commands of that particular bishop. I mean, that's the way the church works. No one ever called him to task until finally, as an anti-war activist, Phil Berrigan was arrested out of his rectory closet in April of 1970. And word got out that the FBI had tracked Harry to the apartment in New Jersey and got back to the Cardinal. So when the Cardinal called him in and said, you know, some people have complained that there were some nasty words spoken at your ceremony in last April, that somebody said the F word from the pulpit, he also said, and by the way, we have found out about this other thing going on. Would you want to go on being a priest? He said, well, I was ready to leave. Well, we can still use you, Harry, he says. This is Cardinal Cook by this time, not Cardinal Spellman. And the implication was that the church would have been ready to sweep this one under the rug if it could.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So Harry was not driven out of the
Right,
church.
that's so
He would
interesting.
have been welcomed back.
Yeah.
Cook sympathized and empathized with what he was doing, didn't want to endorse it necessarily, but he knew he was doing good work on the West Side and didn't want him to stop
Cook
it.
was quite an unusual person.
He was very strong.
Yeah, yeah. So today, though, it's one of the institutions that has not changed at all.
No, it's
with
gone
the other
backwards,
movements.
actually.
Yeah,
It's gone
right.
backwards. I think that's what's happened.
Right.
Because men left the priesthood in droves in the 1960s and 70s. The men who would have made a difference now were out of the church. And it became a very conservative institution, I think, and I think others who know it better than I
with
do
a great
would
close connection to Rome,
very much so.
not independent
Right.
particularly at all.
Well, there are a few.
Some.
There are a few. You know, I think we can generalize.
I'm just generalizing too much.
But there are cardinals,
But
bishops,
you
archbishops.
spent several years on the West Side at the height of the urban renewal
That's right.
in this wonderful 60s era, and then you moved to Paterson, New Jersey. And Paterson, New Jersey, what? Tell us.
Well, Paterson is a wonderful place, but just in its own right. And by the time I moved actually to Ridgefield, New Jersey first, I was teaching at NYU at the Heights, so it was just a quick run. In those days, you could get across the George Washington Bridge at lickety-split, not anymore. But I used to get to NYU at University Heights in about 15 minutes from Ridgefield. I had 3 kids by that time. I had someone taking care of them on the days when I was teaching. Most of the time, I was taking care of them myself, so it was a pretty heavy load. Harry, meanwhile, of course, was, as you say, coming and going from the West Side. Eventually, when he left in 1970, we decided to move, and we finally found a house in Paterson. And the reason we liked Paterson was for all the right sort of political reasons. Working class town, industrial history, labor history, immigration history, I mean, coming out of your ears. So once we got there, immediately we were caught up in the movement for historic preservation and for revitalization.
An integrated community also.
Oh, very much so, very profoundly.
Right.
It just elected, about 4 years ago, it elected its first African-American mayor, and just last week elected its first Latino mayor. So it has a very interesting sort of new wave
Which
expression
follows
now.
a lot of
Absolutely,
other places. Yeah.
Right. It's, of course, a deindustrialized town in the sense that the major industries that used to be there have left or were leaving, actually, in the middle of the last century. But but it's still an industrial town. It's still an immigrant town. It's still filled with all this stuff that goes on in such towns. And in fact, it's now featured on the American Memory side of the Library of Congress. In fact, I went to a showcasing exhibition of this website, the only city in America that's on the American Memory site of the Library of Congress.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So you became a preservationist?
I became a preservationist, very much integrated into the city, became the Commissioner of Historic Preservation, and now I'm a member of the New Jersey Historic Sites Council, appointed by Christy Whitman, no less. I mean, I don't know how she read my anarchist background. My book was just published too, so I got to hand it to her. I mean, she's quite the woman. But a member of the New Jersey Historic Sites Council now, where I try to, with my colleagues who are very right-minded, to keep that sense that preservation is about people alive in the community.
So now you have 3 children, and we
and 4 grandchildren,
grandchildren, and we talked about the 2 of them are practicing a different religion. Well, they're not practicing; they're married. All right.
Is a
so
strong
let's explain
word,
it,
right?
because it's such an interesting kind of. It evolves. I mean, here you're preserving ancient traditions, and then you break the traditions, and the kids are continuing in a way.
My Nina is very traditional. She studied anthropology. She's very, very attached to my mother, her grandmother, and feels, I think, and went to Sicily actually to live for a while to learn Italian. She speaks Italian beautifully, so she's kept hold of some of those sort of folk religious traditions, and is very profoundly attached to them and to the foodways. Of course, Italian foodways are mystical in many ways. So she's brought that into a relationship with a Jewish young man who is now the father of my grandson Gabriel, and they integrate these faiths really in their practice. My son is married to a Jewish doctor, and I say that had he been born 50 years sooner, he would have been the priest in the family. But now he's the rabbi.
That's so great.
He loves the liturgy. He just does it so well.
It's such an interesting kind of thing, and it happens more and more, I think, in life, doesn't it? In a mix.
Yes, I think
I certainly live in a family where we each have 5 grandchildren. One of Jimmy's grandchildren, Jimmy is Irish Catholic. His other grandmother was an Italian-American woman. He was just bar mitzvah 2 weeks ago, so it's a whole interesting kind of thing.
I love this.
So your book is available?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's just out in paper, and so it's cheaper than it was when it first came out. It's Feminist Press right here at CUNY.
And are you writing another one?
I'm very grateful to them for that. Yeah. Because, by the way, one of the things that you discover when you're writing a book like this, and this was before the scandals that just broke, is that a lot of people didn't want to talk about this subject. So it had a hard time.
So nowadays, I think they do.
Yeah, now it's
And nowadays, I think also it's become a subject of great interest as to whether celibacy is really the thing to do. That it should not be, though.
Mandatory.
It shouldn't be mandatory. And it shouldn't be confused with what's happening necessarily in the church. But thank you so much for coming, and thank you very much for listening, and read this book because it's a wonderful, rich story.